No shortage of topics to talk about after the preseason opener, but let me know what grade you would give Michael Penix in his first game as a Falcon. A, B, C, D, or F. If you watched the game, I'd love to hear from you. If you didn't watch the game, I don't really blame you. It's preseason football, but I'll give you my letter grade towards the end of the video. Let's talk about what I think was a little bit of a stinker last night in Miami, but that's pretty on brand for most preseason games. The Falcons fell short to the Dolphins 20-13. Nearly had a chance at the end of the game to tie it up, maybe go for two and win the game, but ultimately could not convert on 4th and goal. But there are a lot of storylines coming out of this game. We're going to talk injury news and updates. We're going to talk about Michael Penix and what we saw from him as he was the starter for the Falcons with pretty much all 22 starters on offense and defense combined not playing last night. So we got a good look at Penix for well over a quarter. But let's start by hitting some of the injury news. So Demarcco Hellams, unfortunately, likely has his season cut short. He was carted off the field. The broadcast did not show what happened, and then I was able to find a video of it after the game laying in bed, and it doesn't look good. I can't say definitively if he's out for the season, but Rondale Moore getting carted off with a cast on his leg and Demarcco Hellams getting the exact same treatment just 2 days later. It does not give me a lot of confidence that we're going to see the second-year safety. So I'm fingers crossed, hoping to be wrong, but man, it feels like Hellams' season is over. And if that's the case, Trey Tarpley, he's a second-year man, safety, went to Vandy, played in some spring league. I thought he played pretty well, kind of filling in for Hellams. We saw, more of Micah Abernathy. I think we even saw a little bit of Richie Grant last night as a result of Hellams going down so early in the game. But Atlanta's safety room is pretty thin. Like, you've got an all-pro in Jesse Bates. Richie Grant, maybe he has won this new coaching staff's hearts over compared to the last one, but he didn't play all that well down the stretch in 2023. So a lot of Falcons fans are wondering, what about Justin Simmons? I mean, it only took probably 5 minutes after posting my post-game video last night for one person to comment, sign Justin Simmons. So should Atlanta kick the tires on Justin Simmons? I'm on board with adding Simmons. And it's not because losing Demarcco Hellams, who was technically your third safety, should be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and now we really got to go out and add Justin Simmons. Like, you're kind of, overcompensating for the loss of a third safety by going out and getting a Pro Bowl All-Pro player. But I think what we saw last night was the Falcons pass rush, albeit not with its full strength and all of its players, but had Zach Harrison, had Arnold Ebiketie, like two guys they're supposed to be two of your top leading pass rushers out there. I wasn't all that inspired from what I saw out of Arnold. So if you're not going to get to the quarterback within 2 to 3 seconds, you better have a pretty good secondary. And Justin Simmons is one of the best ball-hawking safeties in football since entering the league. In fact, the former third-round pick has more interceptions than anyone else in the National Football League since 2016 when he got drafted. Now, he recently had a visit with the Saints, so not only would I like the addition of Justin Simmons just because I think he's a good player, but if you could also take him away from New Orleans, that would feel like a double win in my mind. So I don't think losing Demarcco Hellams for a long period of time should be the difference maker in deciding to add Simmons, but I think that paired with a questionable pass rush should be enough to go, we should probably reinforce our secondary. They're likely going to be called on a ton this season. Before we move on to the next injury news item, help us reach our goal of 23,000 subscribers. I greatly appreciate all the new subscribers we picked up last night during our watch party. So help us get another watch party by reaching 23,000 subscribers so we can go live next week for the Ravens game. So moving on to the next piece of injury news, Bralen Trice, the rookie out of Washington, he hobbled off the field late in the second quarter. He was helped off by trainers favoring his ankle. Didn't look as severe as Demarcco Hellams, so I've got some more internal confidence that he will not be lost for an extended period of time or the entire season, but it definitely looks like he could miss some time, and that's not good to hear for a rookie that really needs every single rep in training camp just to kind of get up to NFL speed. It's going to be tough for him to miss the rest of the preseason or training camp and get tossed back into the mix in the regular season because he might be just a third-round pick, but for the Falcons, that's a third-round pick that's going to be a part of their pass rush rotation. So hopefully Trice can make a quick recovery, but it stinks to see. So hopefully we'll get some good injury updates on them in the future, but let's talk about Ebiketie for a moment. Not a great performance. I was a little surprised to see him play just because all the other starters didn't play, so how does the Falcons coaching staff view him if they're willing to sit pretty much everyone else? He had 25 snaps, 1 tackle. PFF did not like what they saw out of him. I thought the best play he made was a special teams tackle on a punt coverage. So a little bit concerned that the team's supposed number 1 pass rusher, right? I mean, that's what everyone was telling me in the comment section was when I was being a little bit on the pessimistic side about losing Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell, and everyone telling me, don't worry, Ebiketie's going to fill their shoes, and then some. One preseason game is not something to make a mountain over, but it's not good. Like, it's definitely something to monitor, and if this does not improve in week 2 of the preseason, the Falcons should be doing some hard looking at available options, whether it's in free agency or trade for a pass rusher. Because I'm not interested in hearing about how this is not supposed to be a season where they have all their ducks in a row. You don't sign a $180 million quarterback if you're not seriously invested in winning playoff games. That's right, winning playoff games. Not just making the playoffs, but winning in the big dance. And they need a better pass rush to do so. So hopefully this is just one bad Saturday or Friday and they shake it off and everything's ready to roll for next week. But that's a little bit naive of me to say. So hopefully we'll see some actual improvements made and this is just one bad day. But with that all being said, we do have some good news coming out of this game. We're going to talk all about Michael Penix and what we saw from him in his preseason debut. But first, I want to tell everyone about our friends over at GameTime. If you love summer baseball and want to catch a Braves game before the season wraps up, get started with GameTime today. They are an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or preseason tickets for Atlanta with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, download the GameTime app, create an account, and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's talk about what everyone wants to hear about today. How did Michael Penix look? I didn't watch the game. It was a Friday night. I had better stuff to do with my time. Michael Penix looked really good. It wasn't a huge sample size. He only played a quarter and a half-ish. But in that quarter and a half, we saw a lot of what we saw from him at Washington. A guy who's not afraid to push the envelope, flick it down the field, go for the big chunk play, be a little bit of a risk taker. He had an awesome 40-plus yard throw to Blair after he fumbled the ball in the previous series, so good to see the receiver bounce back after a down play. He had some nice connections with Casey Washington, nearly linked up with him for a 15-yard pass if he could have stayed in bounds. But overall, if you're looking for something short and sweet, I was really encouraged from what I saw out of Penix. And I'm not surprised by that. Penix was a quarterback that I was super high on coming out of Washington going into the draft process. So I'm very excited to see what he can do for the rest of the preseason. But as far as what the coaching staff and Arthur Blank and the front office wanted to see, they saw a lot of good stuff. The national media is pretty much glowing about what Penix was able to do. Very efficient with the football, 9 for 16, over 100 yards. But unfortunately, that hot play did not continue for the other two quarterbacks. Taylor Heinicke had a brutal outing. 4 for 11, 11 yards. He threw the ball 11 times, and he averaged 1 yard an attempt. You'd have to have 10 downs just to get a first down if Taylor Heinicke was your quarterback. There is going to be some conversations about the future of Heinicke on this roster. I don't know if it's worth having a third quarterback if they can't even perform against the third-string defense of the Miami Dolphins. You might want to allocate that roster spot somewhere else, like defensive line. That's a very deep room for the Falcons with a lot of young players. Do you want to keep a rookie like Zion Logue and try and develop him? Or do you want to have a third quarterback in Heinicke who goes 4 for 11 for 11 yards? It's one preseason game. I don't think it's fair to put anyone 6 feet under for one bad day, but this is definitely something to keep an eye on for the next 2 preseason games. And if it does not improve, I don't see how Heinicke makes this roster. Moving on to some other good news. Kevin King, that was the veteran corner Atlanta signed. He had the connection to Jimmy Lake back with, I think it was Green Bay or Washington. But anywho, he has not played in an NFL game at all since 2022. Hasn't played in a regular season game since 2021. He was battling injuries at the end of his time with the Packers, and he puts up a monster night. 3 tackles, 2 pass breakups, 1 interception. PFF loved what they saw. He had the best PFF overall grade for anyone that played more than 10 snaps. Kevin King definitely gave everyone a big sigh of relief when it comes to depth at the cornerback position. Not just because of his own play, but also Antonio Hamilton. He was another veteran addition this offseason. And now I'm wondering, could these 2 guys maybe push Mike Hughes for the starting cornerback role? I'm probably overreacting a little bit just to one preseason game. But what I saw out of King and Hamilton definitely made me wonder, if they continue to play at that level, why can't they go on from competing for CB3 to CB2? I thought Hamilton, by the way, showed a lot of physicality and violence. And in a preseason game, and that's not uncommon because you've got guys who are trying to prove a roster spot, but it's always a little refreshing for the first preseason game to bring back some good old football, and Hamilton was not afraid to do that. He had 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a PBU, 73 overall grade from PFF, so really good stuff from the backup corners for Atlanta. Definitely makes everyone a little bit more comfortable with the DB room moving forward. But to wrap it up here, once again, overall, the Dolphins won a meaningless preseason game, so I'm not really upset about the score. Sure, it's nice to win, but I hope you don't peak in August. But I don't want people to come away from this game with the idea of, man, the Falcons are in some big doo-doo right now. They couldn't run the ball for shit. The Falcons did not play their starters in the ground game whatsoever. They sat all 5 starting offensive linemen. They even sat their backup center. Bijan and Algier did not play. For all I know, the guys that were on the field yesterday running the ball between the hash marks could well have been a UFL team. So that's not the Atlanta Falcons offensive line or ground game in the slightest. So I don't look at big picture items when I'm evaluating preseason games. I look at the small things like injuries, Arnold Ebiketie, Michael Penix, like individuals, not groups or an entire side of the football. The lack of third down conversions. Yeah, sure, you'd like to go better than, I think it was like 1 for 15. But you know what? The good news is Nathan Rourke and Taylor Heinicke aren't going to be on the field for third down for you in September. So I don't give much weight to those types of concerns or issues after a preseason game. I want to know how certain individuals did. Because sure, the players on the team would like to see themselves develop and hopefully land a roster spot, and the coaching staff is gunning for that. But I also think it's important to take a little bit of a step back and go, what are we doing here? We're getting ready for the 2024 regular season. I don't really give a shit about how the third stringers do in the preseason because they're not going to be playing in the regular season. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate everyone that hung out with us during our watch party yesterday. Make sure to come back next Saturday for Falcons-Ravens here at Falcons Today.